We can get into it. It's great to meet you. Thanks for taking a minute. I want to begin our conversation with I know we're all getting a little tired of talking about COVID, but living through that pandemic was quite a deal for all of us, especially in the line of work that you're in. So, how did you survive that time period, and how did it change the way that you do things now?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I was just chatting with a friend of mine. I was very blessed, and I have just a ton of silver linings that have come from it. Um, Ask me your question again because there are multiple parts of it. I'm going to go through each one.
Sure. So, it was ultimately how did you get through that time period, which changed so much for us, and how has it affected the way that you live your life now?
Yeah, so I now, I mean, I'm a hypnotherapist and a happiness coach, but I was an IT and business strategy consultant during COVID.
Sure.
So I just worked remotely. I held meetings with hundreds of people over Zoom, right? Very quickly, I was able to adapt because of my way of being and my career. Like there was no stopping. We couldn't stop, right? In my line of work. So professionally, it wasn't a big deal. Personally, it actually was really great. I created a yoga studio in my house. So I turned my office into a yoga studio, my kids' old playroom that they never used, into my office. And then I built this fabulous sanctuary, which I always wanted to have a place outside where I wouldn't get eaten alive by mosquitoes.
Yep.
So I built a fabulous screen and porch.
Yep.
I connected with old friends. We started doing Zoom calls, right? College girlfriends that I didn't stay as good of in touch with as I would have liked. And then around here, we had yard connections where we we would set chairs, however many feet apart that we thought we needed to at the time. And then as things got easier, we got closer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was very blessed. It taught me to slow down. I'd already started that process. Um, I think the one blessing that I hope everybody was able to see and feel is that not only were you able to slow down, but the universe didn't give you a choice,
Yeah.
right? I feel like around here in DC Metro, people are still now back on the road, commuting 1 to 2 hours each way. And I'm just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I don't wish that on anyone. So I hope that everybody got to slow down because they didn't feel like they had to keep up with the Joneses because even the Joneses were slowing down.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
They
Does that
certainly
answer your
were.
question?
Yeah, it does, and it's interesting as we were going into this, that March 13th was the key date. And as we were going into it, I think we all had a decision to make based on who we were. Were we going to do things the same way? Were we going to try to like enhance our lives? How are we going to deal with this? Did you go into it with the game plan, or was it kind of an existential moment? I'm going in, we'll see what happens, and all of this kind of unraveled and developed as it did.
So one of the blessings that I've given myself is I don't watch the news.
Yeah.
I highly recommend to anybody if you're listening and you watch the news or you get caught up in the news, stop.
Yeah. I agree.
You become what you listen to, you become who you surround yourself with, and all that energy, right? You think that you're protected because you have skin, but skin is overrated. It actually goes into your being, it creates thoughts in your mind that were not there before, right? And you lower your frequency. And so then when you lower your frequency, you open up yourself to dis-ease and disease. So I was blessed that I didn't listen to the news. Somebody told me, hey, something's going on. So I went to the grocery store, got a cart full of stuff, right? And came home. And I remember, so my mom's from, they still live in a small town in central Illinois, right? And she's fabulous at sewing. Like they have skills that have been lost on my generation. And she was making all these masks. And she's like, oh, what fabric do you want? And this and that. She's like, do you want me to send them to you? I'm like, nah, by the time it gets here, this will be over.
Yep.
So in the beginning, I actually was not aware and did not predict, the level of change that we were all going to go under.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't like, oh my God, it was kind of like, oh, well, this is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I tend to approach everything now in life with compassion and curiosity.
Yeah.
And that's what I just continue to do. Right. And
Yeah.
so pain might be real, but suffering's a choice. And I don't choose suffering, I choose curiosity.
Yeah. Well said. So let me ask you this. If we got to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the
Okay.
kids asks you, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Third grader, I help you understand the thoughts and feelings that you have, and I help you make them better so that you can have more fun and be happier.
What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
So I don't know. I know that I wanted to, by the time I got to high school, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
I actually went to pre-law at SLU. But all the tests told me I should be a social worker.
Okay.
So I grew up, my folks were very poor growing up, and then they managed and they were frugal, and the good German work ethic, and they saved and they taught me never live above your means. Right? Save, 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 get a good paying job so that, like it was all from the heart, but also from a mindset of lack and scarcity and risk avoidance, right? Which is what a lot of us parents do, right?
Yeah.
We want to protect our kids, but sometimes we overprotect them, or we put fear into their minds when really we need to like fuel their imagination.
Yeah.
So very early, my imagination was um, covered with fear and get into control mode, right? So I was always very risk averse and controlling things. I got grounded if I didn't get straight A's, because if I didn't get straight A's, then I wasn't going to get into a good school, and then I wasn't going to have a good job, and then the world would end, right?
Yeah.
So what I wanted to be when I grew up, I just played and I was very creative, but then it very quickly turned into, and that's part of my story, right? I lived a life and I was successful in a career that wasn't my own, but it was driven by fear of the unknown. And what I've been able to do and what I help my clients now do is let go of the fear of the unknown and realize the unknown is a very exciting place of possibility, right? So a lot of us stay in this like stuck, stale, mossy pond rather than going out to this beautiful, amazing ocean because of fear. So there's a quote, I might mess it up, but I love it. Virginia Satir. People prefer the misery of the certainty, Joe, over the misery of the uncertainty,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
totally get that.
But now that I've let go of the fear of the unknown, I get so excited and like it's just
Uh-huh.
amazing. My life has transformed in amazing ways. And that's what I help other people do. Get out of the stale, stinky pond and into the ocean of possibility.
So when you look back on your life, going back to Illinois and all of these foundational milestones of your life, probably especially when you were younger, what were the seeds that you think that were planted into you that have allowed you to be a happiness coach, to tap into people's feelings and psychology and get them to a place where they don't feel fear and they feel like the unknown's an okay place?
That is such a great question. I've never actually thought about it before, but something just instantly came to my mind. The first is unconditional love. That seed of unconditional love. I did not realize, Joe, how many families in this world don't have that
Uh-huh.
growing up. I grew up in a town of 2,300. I was in town, but across the street were cows and cornfields. I'm not lying.
Yeah.
Now there are houses, but back then there weren't. But I was unconditionally loved. Like, yeah, I got grounded if I didn't get straight A's and I got in trouble, but I always knew I was loved, right? I didn't feel like my authentic self was enough, but I always knew I was loved. So unconditional love from my family. I think the other thing is like creativity from my grandma. I believe she was an angel. She gave everything that she had. She was poor, but like just complete generosity. So I think unconditional love. generosity and kindness were the seeds that were planted. My life then became shaped by fear and stuff, but those seeds never stopped growing.
Yeah.
They never stopped getting watered. And so all I had to do was remove the masks of fear and judgment and the things that did not serve me or others that I loved.
So, who's been a hero? Who's been an inspiration for you in your life?
Hmm. Who's been a hero? I have several. I think my grandma, right? Like left this earth and she vacated her body a long time ago, but she's never left me. Um, I think that my parents in their own way, right? They've supported me through my whole life. They've always just wanted the best for me. And then most recently, my partner, in business and in life, he is the one that introduced me to hypnotherapy. He is the one who I continue to grow with. So we walk our talk, and conflict now brings us closer versus like before it would be like fight or flight and you butt heads or somebody disappears. And now the scary stuff isn't scary anymore.
Yeah.
And then I think the little Yvonne inside of me, she's been through a lot and she's never given up either.
Yeah.
So there's so many people we could name, but that's what comes to the forefront of my mind.
Yeah. So, let me ask you this, whether it's in your field or otherwise, if you could meet one fascinating person on this planet and spend a little time with them, see how they operate, or just soak in who they are a little bit, who would that be?
Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Okay.
hands down. I'm fascinated with him right now. And he's also, I guess, kind of a hero in the sense that, so I'm also a certified yoga instructor, although I don't teach anybody I teach my friends for free. um, but what Dr. Joe Dispenza has done is combined and helped us all appreciate ancient wisdom with modern science. And I think there's so much we don't know, and there's so much that has been known for thousands of years that people just don't tune into because they can't believe it, or it's woo woo, or they can't feel it. But there's such power in it. And he's helping people understand and open their mind to it because he's bringing the data, he's bringing the science. And so I think he's helping free people just like I am by teaching them human being 101.
Yeah.
So Joe, like, did you have human being 101 in school? No. Did your
No.
parents teach you human being 101?
No.
No. Have we cloned a human being yet? I don't watch the news, so keep me straight if I'm wrong.
I don't believe so.
No. Okay. So, but we can build rocket ships, we can do all these amazing things, but we are the most complicated thing on this planet. We are the most sophisticated thing on this planet, and nobody's even gave us the quick start guide.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
Like, let alone the whole manual. And so he is giving us that now. I love his books. I love what he does. I want to go to his retreats. I haven't yet. Um, but that's who I would want to learn from because I feel like he's actually starting to tap into the power of the human being in a way that can be absorbed and applied.
It's amazing all of these things that are foundational that provide the biggest urges in humans are not taught in school, like healthy relationships, money management, just essentials of like navigating this world, different cultures, having empathy. There's all of these things. And I know there's things that are unteachable. It's like a musician. The musician really doesn't learn until they get on the bandstand. They can learn all of this theory, they can practice until their fingers are numb. But at the end of the day, when you go out into the world, but there should be, I would feel, on some level of curricula that we all go through. I always
Yeah.
joke around that instead of getting a master's degree or higher education, just go back to kindergarten because that's where all
Yeah.
of the foundational elements came from, right?
If we only could, right?
Yeah.
So what you're talking about can be done in schools. And I know that they're starting in some, but it's not public schools, but it's experience based.
Yeah.
So even the things that I teach my clients and share in my community is like, don't take my word for it. Take it, apply it. It's everything is experiential, like true learning, true growth. take it,
Yeah.
play with it, test it, get the experience. And if that experience is valuable to you, keep it and pull on the thread. If it's not, let's try something else.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I had to let go of is this judgment that we have so much in the world, right? And school doesn't help that. It's all metrics based. And then like granted, I believe that competition and healthy competition is good. My sister's a teacher, and I can remember one time she told me she couldn't use red ink because it gave people complexes. So I don't want to take us that far. Um, but I do want to bring out the authentic experience. So Dr. Gabor Mate is another great, and he says you need two things as a kid: attachment, which you get, right? Because babies will die. We can't survive on our own. But the thing we don't talk about is authenticity.
Hmm.
So, Joe, your question of like, what did I want to be when I grew up? I think maybe they asked me in kindergarten, but then never again.
Yeah.
Right? We get molded, we get pushed, we get corralled, and then it's all to your point of these external things. You get taught math, reading, writing, arithmetic. The reason there's so much depression and medicated people in the world is because so many people are disconnected from who they really are. And that is what causes the disease. That's what causes the suffering. That causes the mental anguish. Because of all the people we've worked with and all the people our teachers have worked with, it comes back down to some feeling of I'm not enough.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not popular enough. I'm not whatever it is. We don't feel enough because we aren't ever going to be anything but our authentic selves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not what we teach in school.
Right.
How to figure out who are you authentically? How do you find your purpose? How do you deeply connect with other people? How do you deeply connect with yourself? That's what I teach in my community now. I call it my tribe.
Yeah.
We launched a company called Limitless You. And on our website, you can go there, unlocklimitlessyou.com. If you're like, I don't know what she's talking about, I'm not quite sure. We have a little 3-minute quiz. You can go take unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz. There's also some resources there. So if you're listening and you're like, I didn't get human being 101 either, damn it. There are things that we're putting out there that you can just go access for free because that's why I made my career change. I had a successful 25-year career in business and IT strategy. And I'm like, it wasn't fulfilling me. I was starting to get miserable. I was starting to drink too much wine and binge watch Netflix too much and try and disconnect from like this emptiness of something that was missing.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone to feel that way.
So, what is that urge, that motivation for you every day to wake up, to do this work? You have to give a lot of yourself, obviously, but you also have to evolve and grow as a human. What is that
Absolutely.
collective energy for you every day to do this?
Well, that's the brilliant thing. Like what I do is helping other people grow. And by learning and absorbing as much as I can about the human being, I'm getting to learn and grow. So Joe, I stayed like I've known for the past probably 10 years. Like I'm like, if I won the lottery, which I don't buy lottery tickets, so that was never going to happen,
Yeah.
I would go back to school for psychology
Yeah.
because the human mind fascinated me. Or I wanted to go into neuroscience or something. And I thought, oh, I looked into it, the amount of money I'd have to spend, the amount of years I'd have to spend. I kept thinking of all the reasons why I couldn't. When I made this leap, what I realized is like, most of the folks that are going and getting those PhDs or those advanced degrees are not getting taught the latest and greatest, right? Because they can't get the information through the red tape fast enough. And then it's like, well, what if it disproves all the other things they've been teaching? Like, oh, well, we can't have that. So let's keep people medicated because
Yeah.
then we can keep like just having them come back week after week. So what wakes me up every day is like, I'm doing something where I am growing and thriving, and then I help other people get to do the same.
Yeah.
Yoga means a lot of things, but it means union. And for me, there's this really cool thing, discover your why, like whatever it is you think you want to do or why you want to do it. There's a great tool. We have it, it's for free in a bunch of places, but on our website, there's another version of it. And so, Joe, you ask yourself, well, what do you want? Or what's your magic wish? Or whatever the thing is, right? We like to talk about magic wishes because we feel magical and we help other people feel magical because the things they thought they could not ever do, they do in a matter of months. It's
Yeah.
fascinating
Yeah.
once we unlock the human mind. And so you ask yourself that, and then you say, well, why is that important? Why is that important? Why is that important? You do that 7 times. And what came down to me, Joe, is connection, human connection and experience. So because that's what drives me, that's what I want, what I love. It's not the same for everybody, but it is for me. And so I'm learning about how does a human being work? What keeps us from connection to ourselves? What keeps us from deeply connecting to others? Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I
Speak.
get to do all day long.
Yeah, which is wonderful. I mean, it's a perfect two-way avenue. So speaking of connecting, that was the thing about COVID that was strange. I mean, if it would have happened in the 80s, we wouldn't have had all of these pieces of technology to keep us connected. But it happened during a time where we were all technologically connected, but we were still disconnected. Because when we
Yeah.
came out of it, we wanted to see music in person. We wanted to go do things that involved the energy of someone on a stage or in a restaurant or wherever. That was the irony of living through that and just you talking about that connection. I think that was another big thing that was a part of living in isolation and being separated for a while.
Yeah. I wanna pull the thread on that a little bit because I think there's connection is very interesting. Energy doesn't necessarily require physical connection. However, if you're not deeply connected to yourself, or if you're not aware of your energy or the energy of others isn't as strong, you need that,
Yeah.
right? So there are pluses and minuses to COVID because for those people that got curious and did do the deeper connection, it became amazing. For folks that didn't know how to do that, or they didn't have people around them, or they never even heard of that, like where I come from, Joe, I didn't even think I'd leave the country growing up. I thought that just happened in the movies.
Yeah.
So I'm the pot calling the kettle black here, right? If you are listening and you're like, I don't even know what they're talking about, and how can we be connected? And what is this energy business? Just start learning. Just start learning. Go
Mhm.
watch YouTube. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. Go to my website, check out the resources there. You're going to learn so much. I think what happened is the folks that were doing the work, they had the space to connect deeper to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what you'll find is your connection to anybody else, your connection to a musician, your connection with the audience, it's never about the people outside of you, Joe. The type of connection you'll have, whether in person or remote, has nothing to do with the people you're connecting to, nothing to do with the environment to start. It has to do with the connection you have with yourself.
Yeah. Totally get what you were saying. And I'd like to follow that up with all of this work that you've done, everything that you've evolved into at this point. What are you the proudest of?
What I'm the proudest of is how my kids are starting to heal and open up.
Yeah.
I went through a really bad and it's divorce and it's still pretty caustic. Like I got a security system, not because I live in a bad neighborhood, but because of him. And I also grew up with like this command and control parenting style. And that's what I thought it was. That's what I'm like, you read the books, timeouts and all the stuff, right? We didn't know.
Yeah.
So what I'm most proud of now is when I have two boys, one's 17 and one's 13. And what I'm most proud of now is the way that their emotional intelligence and the connection to themselves is evolving
Yeah.
because not of what I tell them, not what have I can how I control them or guide them, but because they're observing my way of being. And my way of being has changed so drastically once I figured out what the heck those limiting beliefs were that I didn't even know. Right. My partner, my hero, told me, like, oh, if you were in that kind of marriage, you probably have something going on in there. Right. Had I not known that and worked on that, I would still be in my old way of being. So I think I'm most proud of kind of like breaking that generational curse of not knowing and being afraid of the unknown because now I know my boys are going to be able to live as their authentic selves A lot more likely than had I not done my own change.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am light and love.
Yeah.
Like what I believe you have to put attention on intentions, and you don't get what you want, you get what you are. And so my intention is to be light and love and to shine as bright as I can, like love myself fully so that I can fill my cup full and it overflows so much that I have so much to give to others.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think of. That's what I try and embody. I'm not always perfect.
Right.
That's okay. But
Yeah.
that's my intention.
Yeah.
That's who I want to be.
So if
That's what I want
anyone
to
wants,
attract.
yeah, for sure. And so if anyone out there wants to hire you, learn more, reach out, any of the good business, where can they go?
Unlock limitlessyou.com. So
Okay.
you are all limitless. And what we do is help unlock that. So unlock limitlessyou.com/call. It's a free discovery call. I highly recommend before you don't have to. I want to talk to you right away. But two free things, like there's no reason not to do it. Unlock limitlessyou.com/quiz. So take that 12 question quiz, takes 3 to 5 minutes. Start to see how your way of being, although might be normal, might also be holding you back in some unhappiness, right? Because just because things are normal doesn't mean they're healthy in this world, right? And the other thing is you can start listening to our podcast. We have one too, How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. And we're just bringing value, like just trying to find as many people that are also light and love and want to share that. So you can book a call with me. And if even if you don't, start surrounding yourself with love and learning about your human being 101.
That's wonderful. This has been so great. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Keep doing the wonderful work. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care.